And there's the big thing that we've done too is we've taken behavioral science and neuroscience and started to include it. There's a lot of studies that come out, one specifically back in 2015, I believe. And what they showed was that when you have data to back up and validate daily, that's the important thing, validate daily based off of the habits and behaviors that you've been doing, the likelihood of consistency and the likelihood of sustainability increases. Because it's one thing to go and say, oh, I'm going to go to sleep a little bit earlier this week. Well, guess what? You go to sleep a little bit earlier this week, you're still going to be tired. Like, you don't go to bed for early for a week and then all of a sudden go, man, I've got more energy than ever before and I feel amazing. You go to the gym for 2 weeks. Well, guess what? You're still out of shape. You go and you start eating better. Well, guess what? You're still overweight. You go and you start meditating. Well, guess what? You still have anxiety. You go and you start doing breath work. Well, you still have brain fog. It's not immediate that you see the changes in these things. And so the way in which we continue to develop these habits and the ones that are going to really move the needle for you, we need to attach to some level of data that you're going to see changes in, that continue to encourage you, that continue to help you, that continue to show you, hey, this is really great. I'm going to give you a story. We just did so we've got people that come through our emergence program. Emergence program is 3 months long. What we do is we get them tested at the beginning, doing their cellular testing. We build them out like their personalized supplementation and their personalized nutrition protocols. We get them all a wearable device. They all get their Whoop bands. And then we take them on a 3-month journey and start to utilize certain behavior changes based around their life that is personalized to them, the season of life they're in, what their main focus is. And we continually come back to these changes. Well, what we saw was there was an individual who had done all the testing and this happens thousands of times. We've seen it thousands of times. They've done all their testing. They've had their wearable before. And quite frankly, they took their wearable off because they're like, it tells me every morning that I haven't slept well, tells me that I've got a low HRV. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I might as well just leave it on the shelf. I know I didn't sleep well. What do you want me to do? And when all of a sudden they came through 2.5 weeks later, the individual's HRV had gone from 17 to 37. And it was a change of two things in his life. Two things. He owns 7 chiropractic clinics. And so he's got a lot of stress in his life. We did, and again, the guy was working out. The guy was doing all the right things. He would sauna at night. We did 2 things. Number one, we had him take remember, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional stress. The body doesn't know the difference. We had him take a 15-minute break twice a day to do a 5-minute meditation and a 10-minute journal, once at noon and once right before he went home, to clear his mind and give him space. Sometimes he does breath work right into the journal. Sometimes he does meditation right into the journal, just something he chose. And second was stopped with the alcohol at dinner. He would have a glass of wine every night at dinner before he would go to bed. He stopped those two things, and in 2.5 weeks doubled his HRV. Well, all of a sudden he goes, it might just be a coincidence. And so we're like, free reign, skip it for a day, have your wine at night. 34 to 12. He goes, oh my gosh, I do not believe this, but this makes total sense to me. When I do the things, it increases. When I don't, it decreases. When I do the things, my sleep quality increases. When I don't, it decreases. Now, to be honest, if I'm actually reflecting and being aware of what's happening, when I do these things, I am more mentally clear. I am more relaxed. I am a better husband. I can love better. I can feel more fulfilled. I do have more mental clarity. I do have more capacity. And when I don't, I am more tense. I am more frustrated. I am more irritated. I am more anxious. And so that was like oh my God, give me more. Like, give me more. I need more. I need to keep going because I don't know, like, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Like, imagine how far I could go. And so we see that story over and over and over and over again because people don't know what they're capable of and they don't know what a life lived differently feels like. Their conception and their perception of normal is distorted because they've lived in dysfunction for so long. They've operated in this dysfunctional state, this space of chronic stress, this state of chronic cellular deficiency, this state of chronic fight or flight. And I say the cycle literally becomes chronic stress, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, real, perceived, positive, negative, past, future, present. Your body doesn't know the difference. So chronic stress creates chronic deficiency, because remember, our bodies have to adapt. They want to keep us alive, so they're just going to pull from whatever they can. So chronic stress creates chronic deficiency, creates chronic symptoms like brain fog, chronic symptoms like weight gain, chronic symptoms like headache, nausea, inability to sleep, energy loss, low libido, you name it, that we consider normal. Oh, that's normal. You're an entrepreneur. That's normal for entrepreneurs. Oh, that's normal for dads, for fathers, for mothers, for being in a marriage, for being 40, for being 50, which are lies. And the longer we stay with these chronic symptoms become chronic illness. And that is how that is becoming the leading cause of death. So for us, we want to pattern interrupt at the top. If we can pattern interrupt at the top, how to get you out of chronic stress, and then also understand where your chronic deficiencies lie and start reversing those, we eliminate number one, we eliminate number two, magically symptoms disappear. And everything you thought was normal and everything you thought you had to live with is now a completely new version of that. And that is what living differently actually looks like.
Yeah, that's powerful. Super powerful. It's interesting because there are lots of things that I've implemented in my life, and several of them, the result that I get from it are actually different from what I would in thinking it would be. So I'll give you an
Give me an
example.
example of that.
Yeah,
I'd love to
I'll
lock
give you an
in.
example. That's a great question. The sauna. So I use the infrared sauna every morning. What I started to do when I got in the sauna, it has a television screen. It's got internet in there. Like it's got every two speakers. Um, it's quiet. I put it in my garage. I have the cold plunge outside, and I started getting in every morning. And I just did readings and spiritual time, prayer, quiet time. And so what's interesting is I love the sauna more for the space that I've created in my life
Yeah.
to chill. And so I leverage and utilize it as a way to start my day slower. So I'm not sprinting out of the gate, but the sauna may have benefits for my body, but the
Yep.
real benefit is the fact that I am in a meditative state, that I am relaxed, that I am in quiet. I'm not, my phone is not on. I am not taking messages. I'm not answering messages. I'm not looking at notifications. It is a separation. Um, Another thing that I do is I take a nap a lot of days. Excuse me. I take a nap a lot of days. Just years ago, I read a Men's Health article that said 20 to 25 minutes a day could increase productivity by X amount of time. And I was like, well, I need more productivity. So I'm going to start taking a nap. Well, I couldn't take a nap. So I was never a napper. Like I couldn't nap as a kid. You can't start this engine and then slow it down in the middle of the day. Like it was impossible. And so I said, it needs to be possible. And I started by we're talking probably 15 years ago. I started by laying down and just setting a timer, turning off the phone, airplane mode, 25 minutes a day. What I was doing was kind of setting up a meditative state again in the middle of the day, changing the way that I think about how I function. And so the result became much more clarity. It wasn't just the nap. Yes, part of the reason I started, I was playing in a men's soccer league with mostly Spanish guys who got off of work at like 10 o'clock. And so we started games like 11:30. Like it was so late and I was not functioning well. And but the result was so much greater, something that I
Yeah.
still do today, not every day, but as needed. And it adapts me to kind of reshuffle the day when I'm feeling like I'm losing it.
So good. Scott, I'm going to touch on three things here. So number one, validating what you were talking about with the sauna. I'll give a data driven example to this. So I was the same way. Everyone's going to be like, "Oh, sauna and cold plunging is like the biohacking thing that I need to do that's going to increase the HRV and increase my capacity and all these things because there's so much data on it." Well, same as you, I was using the sauna space. I've got a beautiful big barrel sauna outside. I love it. Crank it to 200 and let's go. would use that space. It's quiet, it's dark. And I would go in there and I would do breath work. I would go in there and I would read the Bible and I would pray. And that was like 20 minutes of like great time. Well, what happened was I started to see that increase in HRV. I started to see the increase in sleep quality. I'd use the cold plunge alongside it. It'd be like my time to center it before I went into my workday. And I'd often do it again at night. What I started to do though was I started to bring friends over because I was like, I love this. This is amazing. And they wanted to get in on it. Well, now I'm not praying. I'm not in the word. And my quiet time is now gone because we're conversing in there and it's fun and it's these things. The difference, hold on to this. Everyone needs to hear this. The difference was I had a 22% increase in HRV. My average HRV is like 108. And when I started bringing people into the sphere, when I started to make it about just the modality and just the thing, it dropped 19%. So I wasn't even getting the purpose or the benefit of what it was actually supposed to be, because for me, it was the modality of silence. It was the modality of relaxation, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional stress. The body doesn't know the difference. And so it wasn't that I needed more stress of the heat and the toxicity release and the cold exposure and all the things that happen in there. It wasn't that that's what I needed. It was the space that I was creating that allowed me to come back to that. Now, I would not have known this had I not been data driven. I would have made it because, quite frankly, I love sauning and cold plunging with people. I love it a lot more than doing it myself.
Yeah.
But when we think about this and we start going into this, doing it this way, what ends up happening is it ends up in a much more difficult position. So it was the space it was creating that was allowing me to get into the benefits that I was realizing. And it goes into the second point that you were making, where all of a sudden in our world, we see the change as a physical thing, the physical habit. It's the meditation, it's the breath work, it's the workout, it's the journaling. It's the thing that's there, but we don't realize that just doing the action is not what's there, because when we just think about the action, we take a worldly approach to something that is physical, which creates an emotional disruption going, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not far enough along. I've got anxiety. I've got fear of doing these things, which then creates mental separation going, I'm not far enough along. I'll never figure this out. I'm not worth doing this anymore, which separates us spiritually from what we're called to do. But when we flip that on its head and we suddenly go, hey, what is God calling me to do? What do I need to connect to? This purpose, this intention of why I'm doing it. It creates this mental stability going, I'm exactly where I need to be. I'm doing exactly what I need to do. I'm doing this not for me, but ultimately for what I'm serving other people with, which creates emotional connection that allows us to be stable going, I'm no longer fearful. I'm confident. I'm no longer anxious. I'm content. And then we determine what habit that actually becomes. So for example, for me, meditation is not my jam. Like everybody can say, meditate, meditate, meditate. It's just not my jam. I just don't like it. It's not that, oh, Justin, you need to learn how to meditate. No, I just don't like it. I thoroughly don't enjoy it. And I've tried, I've gotten into it. I've done the habit building for 2 months in a row. I just did not like it. Breath work, I get so deep, I get so relaxed, I get so parasympathetic, and I have all of a sudden these conversations with God that would never have happened if I just meditated. And so it's this purposeful intentionality of understanding what habits actually matter by flipping them on their head and having a very purposeful intention of coming into like, why am I starting into something? And then having the data to validate it and back it up. Because once we have that, it completely changes the game for us. The last example I'll give is everyone talks about, oh, you just got to work out and be active, and that's how you're going to increase your overall health and how you're feeling. Yes and no. For a long time, again, remember competing in high rocks, competing in CrossFit, competing in triathlons and marathons. I'm kind of across the spectrum. I'm doing a lot of different things. But what I notice was when I'm not doing my long runs once a week, 6 to 10 miles is kind of what I consider a long run for me. 6 to 10 miles, when I'm not doing those, my HRV starts to drop. No matter if I'm doing my high intensity training, no matter if I'm weightlifting every day, no matter if I'm doing my swims, no matter what, but I have to get that long run in order to maintain
Good.
my HRV
It's
level.
good stress. You have to
It's
have good
positive. It's
stress, and you
positive
have to
stress.
identify the positive stress from the negative stress in your life. And all you're doing is auditing data driven stress. What's hurting you? What's
Yeah.
helping you? And you would think, oh, I'm pushing myself too hard. I'm doing 6 miles a day. And I know it's easy because I've been doing it for so long, but I'm going to take a break for a couple days. And you watch your heart rate variability go down. You're actually doing the opposite of what your intention was.
And so there's this idea of, okay, how do we actually start creating this rhythm? And people are going to go here and go, oh, I guess Justin said I need to start doing one long run a week. No, that's not what I said. What you need to do is you need to ultimately get your data. You need to understand where your VO2 max number is. You need to understand where your HRV is, and you need to start adding in combination of strength training, long distance training, and interval training, and see where your proper rhythm is. What is appropriate to get the outcomes that you desire? And no, it's not what's going to help you lose weight the most. All of those things will help you lose weight at the end of the day. But what is going to be the best for you based on what your body needs, based on the time of year you're in, based on the season of life you're in, based on the priority set that you have? And that's how you start building this really effectively. And it can be very confusing for people, which is why Own It exists, which is why what we do exists, so that we can help empower, equip, and ultimately educate people to take ownership of their health so they're not reliant on a person, place, or thing. They're not even reliant on us forever. It's that they can truly take ownership and rely on themselves because they have a newfound understanding, not knowledge, not knowing, understanding of what their body needs and can do it in a very personalized way anytime.
If you like clips like this, I have a similar clip here. And if you want to watch the full video, click here.